on, you already been subscribed. Right now, the queen, she on live. Right now. Please pull over the whip, no phoning when you drive. Dope Soul Sporting with the talk. First lady from New York, Brooklyn. All my people, you rocking with the chat. Hit that. The like button would tell me where you at. You know, step from the NBK. Born and raised up NBK. Hey, real lady where she holding it down. No matter way how you feel, she gon' greet you with a smile.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
What?
Dope Soul.
What?
Your soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Salute, Knick family. Welcome to the Just Nickin' It Weekly Show. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen. This is the show where fans get together and talk about the storylines as they relate to the New York Knicks since over the past week. Think your proverbial barbershop, hair salon, just Knick fans getting together and kicking it, or as I like to say, we just nicking it. Tonight, we're talking about the Knicks schedule that was released earlier today. We'll break it down. We'll go over Eastern Conference matchups. We'll go over tough stretches of the season, West Coast trips. We'll also talk about the injuries to Brunson and Randle and Mitchell Robinson and give an update as far as that's concerned, and then anything else that may pop up. So let me bring in the panel. We got Ajay, we got Delusional, we got Geoff. How you guys doing?
Super. Glad to have Delusional back on the show. It's been a minute. So we're ready to rock and roll. I can't wait to hear his takes.
No, I appreciate the love, family. It's definitely good to be back. Definitely good to talk Knick basketball. We're getting close.
Always a pleasure to be here, hanging out with you guys, talking about the Knicks. And Delusional, thanks for showing up tonight. You've been absent for
I've been MIA. That is a lot of DMPs. A lot of DMPs,
man.
Yeah. I don't know if it was coach's decision or not, but
player decision.
Consider the coach. It was not.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh man. So let's just get right into it.
Well, Queen, before we get right into it, we gotta let the people know we actually started the show in the background, but we forgot to hit live, and we were like having like full conversation, real deep into it, getting all emotional. And Delusional realized that, wait, guys, we're not even live. So
Delusional came and saved the day because we probably would have did this most of this show, if not the entire show, in the background, thinking we were live. Kerry Cox.
It's Thursday. It's been a long week, guys.
Definitely.
I saw Kerry Cox said, "Shout out to the chat." I said, "Oh, we live. We must be live." All right, AJ, you have to give away the house secrets, but fine.
Why not? Let them know all the stuff we go through in the background.
Oh yeah, they family as well.
They family as well. You're right. Well, before we get into the Knicks schedule in earnest, let's just talk about the season opener versus Boston and the home opener versus Indiana. Geoff, we'll start with you, Delusional, Ajay, then we'll work it back around. Just your thoughts on the Knicks opening the season again versus the Boston Celtics.
Well, I hate the Boston Celtics. There isn't any team in the NBA that I want to beat more than Boston, but the ring ceremony, I would love to play spoiler. Let's just put it that way. I would, we've had some crazy finishes. We had the RJ miracle shot a couple seasons ago. And last year, I felt like we gave that game away. I hope that we're fully healthy for that game, because I think we're going to need to be. That's a tough challenge, even if KP's not playing. So, but, not the way I would want to start the season. I'm tired of playing Boston first. Like, can't we play against the Wizards and get a little, or the Pistons, get a couple of games where I'm not having to sweat so much at the beginning, and save those tough ones toward the end of the season when we're in our stride.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree. Delusional?
I'm going to pretty much repeat what I said kind of earlier, but on that end, like you said, Jeff, you kind of tired of playing Boston year after year. And us as Knicks fans, we kind of chalk that as an L to kind of begin the season. But I'm more leaning towards I'm happy that we actually playing Boston now. You know, what greater way to match up with a team, you know, coming to the season. Everybody's fresh, like you said, except for KP. But this is a statement game. You know, if we consider this a Eastern Conference Finals team, why not go against the Eastern Conference Finals champ and you know, the Finals champion? Why not match up against them? The ring ceremony, like Jeff said, let's crash that ring ceremony. Let's set a statement to the entire league with an old-fashioned blowout on championship night. Because most of the times, usually whoever wins the chip kind of come in lackluster. They're excited off forgetting that, and they usually take a L. But yeah, I think I'm actually happy we playing against the Celtics this year.
Ajay?
Yeah, and you know, I'm just like Delusional. I'm happy that we're playing Boston. You know, what better way to start the season than to play the best team in the league and to kind of measure up to see where you stand, right? Right off the bat, you're gonna know how you compare to the best team in the league. And as mentioned, while we started the show, but not started the show. The fact that right after that we played the Pacers a couple of times, the team who eliminated us last week, who sent us home. I love the fact that we're going against those two teams right in the beginning of the season. It immediately let us know where we stand, you know, in comparison to the rest of the league. So I absolutely love it. I love the way the season's starting, and I feel pretty good about our team, and I feel we're gonna start with a winning record.
Yeah. I think, you know, any other time I would be like, oh my God, how many times are we going to play Boston? But this particular season, I'm looking forward to it. It's a good way to see how we match up, even though they're going to be without KP. I do want the Knicks to witness the ring ceremony to see what that, you know, what that's like. Yeah, I'm good with playing Boston the first game of the season. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking forward to it. And we're playing in Boston. So super excited about that. And I'll just kick off the home opener against Indiana. Wow. I think the NBA set this up perfectly. Just a lot of excitement for the Knicks fans to start the season. Indiana beat us in 7 games. The 7th game was in the Garden and we lost. All right. I'm over it. So I'm looking forward to that game as well. I just think the Knicks are head and tails better than the Indiana Pacers, in my opinion, and we'll have that opportunity to show that in the home opener, and hopefully I'm in the house, you know. So, you know, we shall see. Ajay, the home opener against Indiana.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Because you know this is, you know, they beat us in 7 games where it was like they literally beat half the team in 7 games, and they were like feeling pretty good about themselves. I know they were missing Mathurin, but you know they coming back, you know, full form. We're coming back full form. Now let's see who's better now. And I'm fully confident that, you know, we can beat that team any day of the week. So I'm very happy that we're gonna play them like right in the beginning of the season. Love it.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think the NBA set it up that way. Maybe they set it up that way too. Like maybe they think they're bothering us, but that actually works out well for us.
Yeah. Nah, I don't know. I think they probably doing it for ratings, and I think those were
Queen
good choices on their part.
When it comes to the Knicks, I'm like a conspiracy theorist. I think the world is against the Knicks, so everything, there's a thought process behind how can we mess this up for the Knicks.
Right. Okay. All right. Delusional.
Yeah, so I agree with everyone. That Pacers game, especially at the Garden, Game 7 left a bad taste, and I think all the Knicks fans' mouth with Brunson getting hurt. We wasn't full strength, and the way Halliburton kind of just showboating, it kind of, you know, definitely took our hearts in that game. So this one is something that I think the Knicks is definitely look forward to. I think we got two days of rest coming after that Boston series. So as giving Tibbs preparation, guys, more time to rest and to properly execute and plan for this game. So there's no reason why we shouldn't go 2-0 to start those two games, and especially at the Garden. Garden going to be rocking too.
Listen, no, I'm looking at the schedule, man. It's a nice schedule.
We're gonna get into the schedule. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm actually trying to make some better slides, but oh yeah, actually I think this is actually good enough. Is there any particular thing you're looking for when it comes to the Knicks versus Boston or Indiana? Overall, whether offensively, defensively, a particular matchup, anything you're looking forward to?
Welcome to Wingstop. That's what I'm looking forward to, especially in that Pacers game. They shot the best percentage from three any team ever has in the history of the playoffs at Game 7 at the Garden. I want to see Wingstop shut them down, as the rap song used to say back in the day. I want that game to be a blowout. I want to run them out of the gym. I want to beat them by 50 points and let Halliburton know this is what it's like when you have to face the full force and fury of the New York Knicks. You lucked out with injuries last year, but there ain't no lucking out this year. We gonna put our foot in your neck, and we ain't gonna let you up to breathe.
All right, Jeff. All right, pretty strong. Pretty strong. Ajay, any particular matchup or thing you're looking for?
Well, I mean, it's the beginning of the season. I want to see not really matchup, but the chemistry. I know we're gonna have like 5 or 6 preseason game and training camp and all that stuff, but there's another, everything. It goes up. The intensity goes up, from between preseason and beginning of the season, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to see how we do, and defensively, I want to see how we stop one of the best offensive or two of the best offensive teams in the league. Okay. And Boston, like this is game 1. They're gonna be raising their trophy, getting their rings, and all that stuff. I don't think this is good. I don't think their head's gonna be in that game. So if we win that game, I'm not gonna be like, okay, yeah, we beat him. I'll be like, all right, we're supposed to win that game. But the Pacers, there's like the nice rivalry between those two teams, and I think they genuinely don't like to play like. I think there's some sort of tightness there, so I want to see how we respond to that. Knowing that that's a rival of young guys, a team of young guys, and the guys who eliminated us last week, who sent us packing. I want to see how we respond to that, and I want to see our intensity. Game 2 of the season, that'll tell you where the team's head is at. Game 2 of the season, how the intensity is going to be, how personal they take it. I want to see that the entire team. Not just this particular matchup, but the entire team. Like, I want them to take that game seriously, because those are the guys from last year who, like I think Geoff said, they were showboating after the game. Halliburton got that little hoodie with the Reggie Miller choke thing. That was cute, but yeah, that was half the team. I want to see the real full team right now against their full team.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not a big believer in Indiana. I had this conversation with Tony Kroll last season. I just think the Knicks are better. Yeah, I don't, and I get it that the regular season is different than the playoffs. They play a different style, and when you're not playing them in a series, you can definitely get caught, off guard. And I'm not saying they're not a tough matchup. I just think that the versatility of this roster, the different ways that we can play, and it's going to be up to Tom Thibodeau to deploy that. He doesn't have to change his starting lineup for every team we play, but during the course of a game, he can mess with those rotations and put a team out there that can match what any other team is doing. Unless somebody go with 2 bigs, then we won't be able to match that. But I doubt it. Delusional? Anything you're looking forward to in those 2 games?
Yeah, definitely. For the Boston series, what I'm really looking for is how Tibbs is going to run his offense. With Bridges coming over now, OG Julius back and starting. how is he going to facilitate? Remember, Brunson had that huge emergence of this person that could kind of take off games and get his touches. Now it's more of a balanced team, and then you have some bench guys. So how he's going to orchestrate all of that, even defensively, are you going to have OG on Tatum, and then you're going to have Bridges on Brown? Then what are you going to do with Julius? Things of that nature. How is he going to match up with that series? The Pacers, like you said, we ain't really worried about the Pacers. That's just go out there and just dominate per se. But ultimately, it's really that Celtics and Tibbs. Believe it or not, this year for me is Tibbs. You got to mastermind this thing. You got the team in front. So how you going to deal with that? Ultimately, how you going to play?
Yeah. I'm in both of those games. I'm really focused, like you said, on the offense and the defense, because I think it's a totally different team offensively. Don't forget Mitchell Robinson is back as well. Randle is back. What is that spacing going to be like? DiVincenzo was our best 3-point shooter with volume. He's coming off the bench. What's, can Bridges step in and not be DiVincenzo, but shoot the ball well enough that it gives the spacing to Randle and Mitch? That's going to be super important. This is shades of Randle, Mitch, and RJ, right? When we was complaining about ball movement and complaining about not having enough shooting. RJ is not here, obviously, but still the spacing between Randle and Mitch. So we're gonna need Brunson, OG, and Bridges to shoot the ball really well. So I'm just really looking to see what is this offense gonna look like. I don't think it's gonna be as free flowing as it was when we had Hartenstein in there, but it doesn't mean it can't be just as effective. It may not be just as pretty, but it doesn't mean it can't be just as effective. So I'm looking forward to what our offense looks like. To Geoff's point, I'm looking forward to see how Bridges and OG, obviously they're not going to be able to stop Tatum and Brown, but how hard can they make it for them? So I'm looking forward to that as well. And, if KP is not there, I'm looking forward to small ball as well. Even if KP was there, I'm looking to see, is Tom Thibodeau going to commit to a small ball lineup? Not at times, but we know at the 4-minute mark or the end of first quarter to start the second quarter, our small ball lineup is going to be there like clockwork. Like I just feel like, but to get the most out of this offense, you have to commit to a small ball lineup each and every night. This is just what we do. So I'm looking forward. I want to see if Tom Thibodeau feels the same way I do. That needs to be a staple of our offense. Anything else before we get into the nitty gritty?
I'm not worried about the offense. We were able to have a top 5 offense when we didn't have players who were as talented offensively as we have on this team now. So, we have Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo coming off the bench now. So to me, I'm not really overly concerned about the offense. I think this team is going to find a way to score points. You have now, is it going to be, the passing clinic of the universe like some people want to see? I don't know that it is. But to me, it doesn't have to be. I don't care how the ball gets in the bucket, as long as it gets in the bucket, as far as I'm concerned. If that means you're feeding Julius Randle in the first quarter and he's cooking for 17, and then he's spraying out the shooters, wide open Mikal Bridges and wide open OG and wide open Jalen Brunson because he's done his work inside, I'm good with that. If that means having the lob up to Mitchell Robinson so he can get a couple of easy buckets and punish people on the offensive glass when they go to double team off of him, I think that the offense is going to work fine. I think if the smaller we play, the better we'll score. So and so The last concern of mine, and I'm not overly concerned about the defensive side of the ball either, but I just think that the narrative that Thibodeau's offenses are unimaginative, and that we've had good offenses almost every season that we've been here, and certainly when we have Jalen Brunson on the floor, our offense is good, and so I'm not worried about the offense.
Well, the Knicks have had a top 5 offense. It hasn't always been the prettiest offense. If we're talking about offensive rating, because it was built off of possessions and not turning the ball over and getting offensive rebounds and getting second chance points and making sure you get enough threes up, get to the free throw line enough. It wasn't a efficient type half court offense, but overall, when you put all of those pieces together, that's how we played. And I agree with you. It may look different than last year. It may not be as nice looking with the backdoor cuts and things like that. But I'm used to the Knicks winning ugly. In the 90s, the Knicks won ugly. I don't think it's going to be like that. But my point is, you can win pretty or you can win ugly. Just win. So I definitely think that the Knicks will win. But I will say this, as we move into the playoffs and you get deeper into the playoffs, it helps to have every player can handle the ball and do something with the ball. And that's why I feel like not using that small ball lineup, you're not getting the most out of this team that you can get. Not that we can't win. I just think it's going to be a little harder because whoever's playing Mitch or Sims or Precious Achua can step off a little bit. Whereas if you got Randle and OG, that's not going to happen. Everybody is accounted for.
I say, have you seen those Jericho Sims summer videos?
I was
joking, guys. I'm joking.
Stomped out my excitement. He was like, I said, okay, let's see if this translates. Geoff was like, look, we're trying to win a championship here. If he's not doing it with defense, I don't want to hear anything. Basically, I don't want to hear anything about it. So we shall see. But yes, he looked good. All right. Let's get into the schedule now. Let's talk about the first 20 games, which I think is, oh, wait, that's not it. All right. It's the first 20 games. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Or if you have your a schedule for reference, those in the chat, if you have your pull up one of the schedules for reference. We're talking about the first 20 games from October 22nd, 2024 to, the bottom. I can't hardly see. Let me see. New Orleans is the last game. So from October 22nd, 2024 to December 1st, 2024. But let's just talk about the first 10 games. Forget the first 20. Let's talk about the first 10 games. At Boston, then home against Indiana and Cleveland, then at Miami, at Detroit, at Houston, at Atlanta, home against Milwaukee, at Indiana, at Philadelphia. That's like 7 of our first 10 games are on the road. Thoughts about the first 10 games? Ajay, we'll talk. We'll start with you.
I love it. I mean, it's very challenging. No, Queen. I mean, listen, it's not easy. It's a hard. It's all there's no West Coast on there, but all of it is Eastern rival teams, right? And those, except, well, I mean, Houston, is in the Western Conference, but it's all rival on our side of the map, right? And those are all teams that we have a history with, or most of them, that we have some sort of thing going on with them, right? We already talked about Boston, Indiana, which we played twice in that first 10 game.
Mm-hmm.
Then, the last game is Philly. Like, yeah, I want to play Philly like early on in the season. You know, the tough series we went over last week. I mean, last season with them. Yeah, I want to play them. Milwaukee Bucks. I want to measure up against Giannis and Dame healthy. I want to measure up against those guys. You know, and you got a couple of nice hopefully soft games there with Detroit and Atlanta. You know, hopefully, those are going to be very resting game. Not a lot of guys going to play a lot of minutes in those games. And Miami, yeah, I want to play Miami, man. Miami, every time we play them, they hurt somebody. So I want to play them. Hopefully we get out of there unscathed, with no injuries. But yeah, I want to play them. I want to beat Miami every time we play them. So yes, it's a good, like the first 4 games, it's great. Cleveland, of course, the stuff with Donovan Mitchell and all that good stuff going on there. So listen, I know it's been a couple of seasons, like since we were trying to get Donovan Mitchell and they got him, but ever since they got him, it's been rivalries, So it's a great I think it's a great first 10 games. It's good. It's a good way to measure to see where the team is at, and they throw a couple of easy games on there just to give us a little breather. But I love that we play.
And then back on the West Coast trip.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough start for the Knicks. Now, can the Knicks do well? Sure, they can go 10-0. They can go 8-0. They, I'm not saying the Knicks can't win any of those games. This is a different Knicks team. This is a strong Knicks team. First team, and the bench. But come on, like give us 7 of the first 10 games on the road, at Boston, at Miami, at Indiana, at Philadelphia. And sure, we got home games, but against Indiana, Cleveland, and Milwaukee. I mean, come on. But yeah, that's just my thought. I would have liked a softer schedule coming out, but it is what it is. Delusional.
I like it tough in the beginning. Go ahead, Delusional.
So usually I like to agree with Ajay, but on this one I'm staying with Queen. This is a tough. So when I first saw the Boston and Indy, I'm like, all right, I'm with the challenge. I accept that. That's solid. Then when I looked at for the Cleveland, Miami, Houston, Atlanta, Milwaukee, in my group chat with my friends, I had to send the Boozy meme. Come on, dog. Come on, man. Like we need, I was looking forward to having something tough in the beginning, and then of course we can ease us in to kind of stay the course and get us there. But this is a tough schedule to begin with, and I believe something similar to last year where we were like hovering at 500 during that mark with that schedule. So yeah, we, like Queen said, we can battle that. We can still come above 500, but we don't need Tibbs running us down kind of early to solidify these W's, which he's going to want to do. But ultimately, it's still a test. Ultimately, this is something that the Knicks are seeing. They see the schedule. Their motto is one game at a time. They're going to knock it one game at a time. But for us fans, we like, yeah, at least give us something, easy. Have us play Washington, three times out of that, and then we'll be fine. But ultimately, I think it's a tough schedule to be honest.
Yeah, and before I get to Geoff, the other part of it is this is not the same team that started the season last year. This is not the same team that ended the season last year. This is a different team. So, they're going to have to get their chemistry right also. Bridges is new to the starting lineup. Randle didn't end the season. He's coming back. Mitchell, well, he ended the season, but he wasn't starting. OG was in and out of the lineup last season due to injuries. So, to JJ's point, shout out to JJ in the chat who said, being on the road does help chemistry in terms of bonding. But I think having some easy games would help the chemistry, would help the chemistry a lot. I do think, as tough as this is, it's going to even out over the course of a season. But to have a team who's trying to get to know each other and learn how to play together and having to play these first 10 games, I think is I think it is what it is. But I would have liked it to be easier. Geoff?
Well, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is how much I love our squad right now. I'm far less concerned with who's on the other side as I am with who's on our side and who's healthy. Like, if our squad is coming and Randle is ready to go and Robinson is ready to go and Jalen is perfectly fine from his wrist and we're firing on all cylinders and we're healthy, I think we could go 13-7 or better, even with that tough stretch. If Mitchell Robinson's not back yet or is not 100% yet, if Julius Randle is still got a rough shoulder, and isn't completely ready to go yet, if we're not, if we're still dinged up heading into this, it could be a little bit of a gauntlet that could be a little bit scary. Just because health matters, and I think that's the only part of the equation that I'm overly worried about. I think if this team is healthy, that yes, it's going to take time to build chemistry. Yes, they might start off a little bit slow, but because Thibodeau teams tend to do that, and I don't know why. Even when there's a lot of defensive talent, you look at teams like us and the Miami Heat and just teams that have that defensive reputation, it takes like 20, 25 games to get those rotations down to really trust that everybody is on a string like they're supposed to be. It just takes that time. So early on, we might see where it's a little bit of a rocky road. But I think that once we hit like mid-December, January, if this team is healthy, they're going to hit their stride. And they're going to be awfully tough. It doesn't matter if Boston's coming to play us. It doesn't matter if it's Denver. It doesn't matter if it's Minnesota. It doesn't matter. I mean, this is a roster that can compete with anybody. And are they going to lose some of those games? Yes, because nobody goes 82-0, but
Right.
I think we're good. I think teams are as much going to be saying, oh man, we got to play the Knicks tonight, as it's, we have Boston tonight. I don't care. Like, let's just go play. But again, my concern is more about who's suiting up for the orange and blue and what level of health they're at and what level of performance are they at, because we know that Mitchell Robinson, when he had his foot injuries before, he was overweight, he was out of shape, it took him a while to get going, those sorts of things. If he's not ready to go, does that force us into more small ball right away? And if that's the case, I think that's a blessing in disguise, because I think when Tibbs sees how that works, it's going to be like crack to him, and he's just going to want to go to it and go to it and go to it. So from that standpoint, there could be some benefits, but I definitely think that for sure a healthy Julius Randle, for sure a healthy Jalen Brunson, and if we could get a healthy Mitchell Robinson, I don't worry about who's on the other side.
What's your thoughts if the Knicks? I'll start with Ajay. Would you panic if the Knicks went 6-4 or 5-5 coming out the gate first 10 games?
No, absolutely not. And that's one of the good things about the quote unquote tough schedule to start with. Even if we come out 5-5 or 4-6, you can make up later on. I mean, look at the next 4 games, Chicago, Brooklyn, Washington, and then you go further down the line. If you start with a tough schedule at the beginning of the season, somewhere we're going to have like a nice stretch of easy games, supposedly easy games in the season. So the worst thing that could happen is you have a shaky start, but you're going to have time to make up for it. By the same token, if you start, I'm looking at the chat here, a lot of people are saying 8-2. If you start 8-2, I mean, that's a good start. You start 8-2 with that tough schedule, and then you got an easy portion of the schedule coming up. You're gonna be in good shape. So no, I wouldn't panic at all if we start, a 5-5 with the first 10 games, or even 4-6. I wouldn't worry, because we have a lot of games coming up that we can make up the record.
Yeah. And then to your point, after that, 10-game slate, Chicago, Brooklyn, Washington, right?
Right.
So an opportunity to gain some more ground
Right.
if we did have a successful 10-game slate, but if not, the ability to make up ground. But then on the road, a 5-game road trip, 4 of them in on the West Coast, so not a lot of rest actually before you on the West Coast playing Phoenix, Utah, Denver, Dallas, and then play Charlotte before you return home. Delusional, just your thoughts on the next from game 11 through 19.
Like you said, those first 4 games are definitely catch-up games, especially if you went, 4-6, or even if you went to 8-2 during that early stretch. That's a stress where I know Tibbs is telling them, look, let's definitely get through this. Let's knock this out before we get to that West Coast, because that West Coast is kind of a 50-50, playing in altitude in Denver, you out there in Utah, the travel and things of that nature. So it's the other elements that's going to affect that schedule rather than just rolling the ball out itself.
Right.
So that's the only thing I see. But like you said, after Geoff brought that energy, kind of make you believe that the Knicks could probably knock out certain things. So yeah, so maybe I'm feeling like, with this roster, and we do know what we can do with that full potential, but just knowing that we do have a solid team, we could probably knock out that West Coast trip. But that early 4 games, Chicago, Brooklyn, Washington, those sounds like guaranteed 4-game wins. So you're kind of going in with that, and then of course, seeing how the ball rolls with those next 5. But I feel confident. I feel good. I feel good with that stretch, especially coming off that first 10.
Yeah, I feel good with that stretch too. The West Coast, like I was chalking Utah up as a definite win until you threw in the altitude. So, I mean, not that we still can't, win the game, but, altitude will be a factor. Phoenix, that'll be a tough, a tough game. And then they also got Tyus Jones, who I really like, played in Washington last season. If I'm not mistaken, he'll be starting, for them. So, it'll be a tough, it'll be a tough stretch. Dallas went to the NBA finals last year. Denver was the champs the year before. So that's going to be a really good stretch. What I do like is we get a chance over the first 20 games to really get a good look at this team, because it's one thing to be good on paper. It's another thing to be good on the court. And by 20 games, we're going to know we would have played Boston, Indiana, Cleveland, Miami, Milwaukee, Philly, Phoenix, Denver, Dallas. Like by game 20, we're going to have a really good sense of who this team is and what the potential is. And this is about the time, the 20th game, where if there's going to be any changes made, this is usually when Tom Thibodeau makes them around game 20. And he will have a lot of stats and evidence against really, really good teams. So I'm liking this first 20 games. First 10 is tough, but I'm liking it. We really get a chance to see what this team is, what they need to improve, if anything, moving on to the rest of the season. Geoff, or anybody else comments on the first 20 games as a whole?
Queen, I just wanted to add, it's basically what you're saying is that 28th game is New Orleans, by the way. New Orleans play at the Garden, the game 20 that we can't see on the screen.
Yeah, that's cut off. Thank you.
By that first 20 game, we will have played literally the best teams in the East and the best teams in the West.
Yep.
Or at least most of them. Like I can't even think who we're going to be missing out on.
OKC, Minnesota,
yeah,
the Clippers.
Right. The Clippers. I don't see them as one of the best teams in the West, but whatever. So we will. Yeah, this is the first, just about the first quarter of the season, right? The first 25 games, the first 20 games of the season. That's first 25% just about games of the season. So that will give us a very good indication of where this team is. So it's by December 1st, we will know where we stand. We'll know what this team, what we're made of.
Yeah.
It's a great schedule.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
But for that particular reason. The only thing where it won't be a good indicator is if we had some injuries. Like if Mitch, hasn't been back yet. And I would think even if he doesn't start the season, he'll be back by game 20, in these first 20 games. But that's the only way, we won't know about the team if there's been injuries. Otherwise, you're absolutely right. We're going to know by game 20 who this team is. We're also going to know how we play. We're going to know how we're playing defensively. We're going to know how we're playing offensively. We're going to have a good sense of the rotations. We're going to know whether Thibodeau is committed to the small ball every single game or whether it's something he just pulling out in specific situations. By game 20, we're going to know a lot.
Now, hold on really quick. When you bring up the small ball aspect, what lineup is you referring to when we talk about the small ball? Are we talking about Jules at the 5 or Precious at the 5?
I'm talking Julius or OG. So
okay.
I have
Okay.
I have Julius and OG, defensively OG may play the 5. And Randle may guard the 4 defense, on the defensive end. But yeah, that's small ball to me, because the thing about Precious, he fits the criteria of small ball in terms of his size. But the advantage with the small ball is that everybody is an offensive threat. Everybody can do something with the ball, and I don't think Precious Achiuwa is there. So I don't think we would have that advantage if he's the 5. But if it's Randle, OG, Brunson, and then those other 2 spots could be Devo and Bridges. It could be it could be Hart. If you feel like you need more rebounding, you could put Hart into one of those last 2 spots. So it can go either way. But I would think Brunson, OG, and Randle would probably be a staple that you can count on in those small ball lineups.
All right, sounds good.
Listen, I've been a big Tom Thibodeau fan, but if that small ball is not a staple, particularly given the fact that we don't have another, you can play Sims behind Mitch Robinson, but I don't know how much that's just more of the same. And some people will consider it even worse, but it's more of the same on the offensive end. So we'll see. We will know which direction Thibodeau is going in by game 20. All right. Anything else about the first 20 games?
Just a couple things. First of all, thing that I think it's important that we remember, the NBA season is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And you're going to have, even the Knicks won 50 games last year. They had a stretch where they went 4-8, right? So you're going to have your ups and downs where you expect to win or you expect to play well and you don't for whatever reason. And everybody's glossing over Chicago, Brooklyn twice, and Washington. You could lose one of those games, especially getting Brooklyn twice in a row. It's tough to beat a team 2 times. I don't count any victory a victory before we have more points than they do and there's no time left on the clock. But what also I'll say that stands out to me is I think one of the barometers for how good the Knicks are every time is how they perform on the West Coast. If they come out of that West Coast trip 3-2 or better, you just know. When we can go out west, when we can play in Phoenix, Utah, if we come out of that West Coast trip 2-3, it's not the end of the world. That's what I would say. But if we come out 3-2 or better, you know that we've arrived. You know that we're real deal. You know that it's going to be a significant kind of a season. Because every time that we perform really well on the West Coast, it's just a great indicator of success for this team. So I'm going to be eyeing those 5 games on the schedule really, really closely. And then I always worry about that first home game after a long road trip, regardless of who it's against, because it always seems like you get to sleep in your own bed and you're not as sharp. You know what I mean? It's one of those, I call them schedule losses. It just kind of, your intensity isn't quite as high because you're back home, and so that those types of games always worry me. And that's one of the nice things about Thibodeau's coaching, though, is that he does an excellent job of getting the guys prepared. But even last year, we had games. I think the game when we were at New Orleans last year was a disaster. I mean, it was just really bad. We played poorly. It was just one of those, okay, just throw the game away, kind of thing. Or when we played Indiana and we didn't have anybody in our lineup because we had just made the OG Anunoby trade. And we had injuries on top of that. And so, it's just kind of like, yeah, we didn't win. Well, if you looked at the schedule like we are now, you're probably looking at the Pacers and say, oh, yeah, that's a win. When you actually get into the context of this is what's happening with the team during that game, that context may not still be there. So it's a long season, and this team has enough talent that over the course of it, even if we struggle with a 4-6 stretch or a 6-4, that's natural. That's going to happen. Even as the Celtics last year, I think if you go through their schedule, you'll find a couple of patches where they didn't really play that great. Because it's such a long season. So, but in the end, I think that talent and coaching wins out, and we have both.
Right. And that game, to your point, after the 5-game road trip, we come home to play New Orleans. Right after. Anything else on here before we move on? All right. This is the first half of the season. 1 through 10 is not here, but it's the first half of the season. So after the West Coast trip, we're home for New Orleans, Orlando, Charlotte, and Detroit. To your point, Geoff, you can't count a game. You can't just show up and win. I don't care who the team is, but if the Knicks show up and play the way we know they can play, this could be an okay stretch for them. Orlando was a playoff team last year. I don't think they've added anybody, if I'm not mistaken. I think they just, similar to Indiana, they're just, rolling it back and hoping for internal growth. New Orleans, not
Didn't
sure
they
what's
sign
going.
KCP?
Yeah, they did sign KCP. Yes, they did. They did sign KCP from Denver. So that should help them. New Orleans, what's his name, played in Atlanta. DeJounte Murray is now with New Orleans, so he'll be their point guard. That was something they was really missing. So he'll be there, and then Charlotte and Detroit. But then the stretch that I have in purple, that is 7 games at Minnesota, at New Orleans, home against Toronto, San Antonio, at Orlando, at Washington. I feel like there's tough stretches, but then there's also soft spots in the schedule for the Knicks. So just your thoughts on New Orleans, Orlando, Charlotte, Detroit, and then the Minnesota. Do you also consider those soft spots for the Knicks or not really? We'll start with you, Delusional.
Just gradually looking at this, it's I would say it is a soft spot, but this is for me, it's like a average NBA schedule. I don't think it's too tough. I don't think it's too hard. It's just a perfect schedule in a mix where you're obviously challenged at Minnesota and New Orleans. Then of course you go to Toronto. That's still a meaningful game with RJ, and then even for Precious, with the trade. Then of course you're heading down to Wemby, who's something to prove, who put up 40 and 20 on us last year. So these are still meaningful games. Orlando, Banchero been putting up numbers on us, so that's something to prove game. And then as Jeff State, you at the end of the stretch and you got Washington twice. So it's like, do you pull off the brakes or do you keep on going?
Right.
So that feels like more of a mental game for the Knicks to kind of stay in the race. So this is I think it's a perfect schedule, honestly. I think it's a perfect schedule that can go either or. Like you said, you could come out hard against Minnesota, come in lackluster against New Orleans, and then vice versa, and then it kind of trickles there for that. But like you said, with the staff that we got and the coach that we got, I think one game at a time, level-headed. I think it's a perfect schedule. I think it's a positive schedule at that. I think we win more than we lose.
Oh, no doubt over the first half of the season. Anybody else have comments? And I didn't even circle Oklahoma City, in there at Oklahoma City.
I may try to go to that game. That's only a 4-hour drive for me at OKC. A couple years ago, we went and got to see the Knicks win. That was fun.
Awesome.
So that's a fun atmosphere. I may try.
We need to see you there.
Yeah. And then we close out the first half of the season. Orlando, Toronto, Oklahoma City at home. We would have just played them the week before. So we played them twice in 1 week, basically. And then Milwaukee and Detroit. So I hear what you're saying, Delusional. It's just kind of up and down. Every 4 or 5 games, you got 2 hard games, a few quote unquote easy games. Ajay, any observations over the first 41 games or after that West Coast swing?
No, I love the fact that it's a super challenging schedule, with sprinkled soft, quote unquote easy games. They're like you said, listen, we're not just gonna show up and win these games, but they should be lighter, easier for us to win. But we still have to play the game. Once the ball goes up, you still gotta, at tip off, you still gotta get down and dirty and win those games. But obviously, by midway through the season, you're gonna know the team the first 20 games.
Yeah.
But by midway, you're gonna start looking at positioning and like where you want to end up. Like, and I have a feeling by game 41, we're gonna be feeling pretty good about ourselves.
Yeah.
I look at the schedule. I see, and I'm not trying to write down anything. I know we'll probably do that later on in a later show when we get closer to the season, the wins and losses and all that stuff. But just at first glance, I mean, we're definitely going to be over 500 with this in the first half of the season. I don't see how, with no injuries, listen, we're going to be definitely way above 500 on there. So it's good. It's a good test for us to know where we're at, what kind of team we have on our hands.
Yeah. And we have 33 or 34 nationally televised games. I don't know where that ranks. If somebody in the chat knows where that ranks, is that the most in the NBA this season or second most in the NBA? But we have 34 nationally televised games. And the Knicks are usually sharp for those, for those games as well. All right. Let's move. Oh, I wanted to say that the teams in blue are the teams that's in the in-season bracket with the Knicks. And so that is
Philadelphia,
Brooklyn,
Denver?
Charlotte, Orlando, and there's one other team.
Philly.
Oh, is it?
Philly. We open with Philly like November 12th or something like that, I think.
So Philly's in blue as well. Okay, so Philly, Brooklyn, Charlotte, and Orlando. Are we missing one? Let me see. Philly, Brooklyn, Charlotte, and Orlando.
No, plus that's 5. There's 6 groups, aren't there?
And Charlotte. Philly, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Orlando. Are we missing one?
I don't think so.
Okay. So that's what it is. Anything in the chat?
So Lakers got 39 televised games.
Who's that?
Lakers.
The Lakers. The Lakers.
And Warriors got 36.
Wow.
Yeah,
So it
Queen.
look like Knicks is top 3.
Knicks.
Yep, Knicks and Boston top 3. Lakers, Golden State, Boston 34. Knicks is 34. Then Dallas and Phoenix. So that's the top 5.
Okay.
Just a couple of posts I wanna go over real quick, since we're still before we move on from this. Dwayne Dennis, shout out to Dwayne Dennis. Tougher is better. It's a litmus test for the team and our opponents. If we're successful with the first 15 games, it puts the rest of the league on notice. I agree with this, but it also let us know where we're at. It gives the confidence. If we're successful, we have a very good record the first 15 games. The confidence it's going to give this team, I mean, sky's the limit. It's very important that the first 10, 15 games are tough games. And then if we do well, it really is going to determine what the rest of the season's like. Not just, it puts the league on notice. It lets us know, like, the vibe, the chemistry is working. The confidence is off the charts. So, like, all that stuff works together. So I agree with this statement, like 100%.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And East Blue Drew, my guy.
I hear you, East Blue Drew. I hear you.
That's the approach, man. I think I expect the Knicks to win I keep saying this all the time. I expect the Knicks to win every game. So yeah, this is how we going into the season.
Look, if we start 10-0, I expect a 72-10 season type feel if we start off 10-0. Just saying.
You can't imagine 7th Avenue if we start 10-0. Outside of Madison Square Garden, forget it.
Let's close the season 10-0. Let's start.
Right.
Let's wait 10-0 till the playoffs when it really counts.
Yep.
For sure. That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
That's what we're talking about, the topic. So
that is fine. All right, let's move to the second half, particularly the stretch. Well, let's do the orange stretch. And then we'll do the purple strike. That purple stretch it's a tough one. But before that, January, what's that? 21st to February 3rd at Brooklyn's. Then a 4-game road trip: Sacramento, Memphis. I didn't mean to put Brooklyn in there. But this is the second West Coast trip: Sacramento, Memphis, Denver, Lakers, and the Houston Rockets. Your thoughts on that West Coast road trip?
that's a tough stretch too.
Wow.
That is a tough stretch. Wow.
So we had a similar stretch like this when we did play Sacramento, and I believe we played Lakers and we played Denver in that stretch, and I believe we exactly right. And
we're home though, right? No, that's
Nope.
Yeah, we're home.
Oh, so we're home. Okay, yeah, we're home.
But for that. Shoot.
That's home.
That's even
But it's still going to be tough. But we're home.
Right. Okay, so I feel even more confident in with that game, especially that Sacramento game. That's a test when they're adding DeMar DeRozan to that, a player that I kind of wanted on the Knicks, but that's a different story. But I believe that's a stretch. The Knicks can go over 500. For me, that testament, that real game is Lakers at the Garden. How we manage Braun, how we manage AD, how we deal with that primetime ABC game. I think that'll be kind of the testament for there. All the others, Denver. I believe since Brunson been here, we've beaten Denver more than we've lost to Denver. So I kind of feel confident with that. Jamal Murray has not been playing to the par that he's been, and they lost KCP. So we don't even know where Denver is going to be at, to be honest, this year. Memphis with Ja coming back, I still feel confident that we could defend them. Besides Ja and Jackson, who else do they have on their team to really be honest, from my point of view?
What's the shooting guard is not bad now.
Yeah, he's
he's pretty good. What's his name again?
Exactly. We don't even know because we
No,
got
no,
Bridges.
yeah,
Nah,
That's
nah.
just my
guys.
prediction. That's my prediction.
We got
That ain't
Bridges.
nothing about him.
We
No,
got
no, he-
Shooting
Bridges.
guard on
Don't sleep on
No,
him.
I know who you referring to. He has the short hands, short brolic hands.
Yeah,
He's
he's
tough. He's
good.
built. He's built. The guy.
Right.
He's good. Somebody in the chat will put it up for us soon. I think it
Yeah,
starts with
Desmond
B.
Bain. Desmond Bain.
Bane. Right.
Bain.
Come
Desmond
on,
Bain.
Bain is
Appreciate you,
what? He's
Bob.
roughly 6'4", 6'5", shooting guard. Yes, he's good. Bridges got the shooting position kind of on lock. I feel good defensively with having
I do too.
that guy on that position. So maybe that's why I kind of threw it out there. But yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think Memphis can really. Our main thing is really maintaining with Ja. You take the head of the snake, similar with Brunson, that can control the outcome. But like I said, that real testament for me is that Laker game. You know how we match up against Braun. Braun always liked to put on a show at the Garden, and that's a game that we need to take. To be honest with you, so I'm looking forward to that. But other than that, I don't think that's a tough stretch, to be honest. And we're home for a long time, so this is something that we're at our practice facility. We working out, we game planning. And then look at it, it's it's 2 days, every 2 days in a sense for that one. So not enough rest in between. But then you got injuries to factor in. Like we said, we kind of passed the halfway mark. Who do we got? Did we make a trade, for a big man during that time period? So there's different elements with that, but I still feel confident to be
And the trade deadline would be looming. I believe it's February 6th. If I'm not mistaken.
Yep, around that time. And the Knicks like to make their trades before that time too. So
They
That's
do.
what I was about to
They
say.
do.
Blue, great point.
Yeah.
Because we made the OG trade New Year's Eve, like it was like December 30th, somewhere in there. So
Yeah.
I think if we make any move like to add a big man or whatever else that they decide we need, it'll probably be before this stretch. I would guess.
Yeah, so we'll start this segment with Geoff, and then we'll go to Ajay and then Delusional. This is, in my opinion, the toughest stretch of the season from February 21st to March 17th. At Cleveland, at Boston, home versus Philly, at Memphis, at Miami, home versus Golden State, at the Lakers, at the Clippers, at Sacramento, at Portland, at Golden State, come home to Miami. That is, I think that's 12 games, 9 of them on the road, and the ones that are at home are against Philly, Golden State, and Miami. By far, to me, this is tougher than the first 10 games. But Geoff, we'll get your thoughts on it, then Ajay, and then Delusional.
Well, and not only that, but you got at San Antonio and at Charlotte after that. So you're talking about 11 road games in 14. That is a tough.
Yeah.
That is a tough slog right there. That's a lot of road games, and in like those home games are cakewalks. That is a tough stretch of the season. If you can make it out of that 7-7, you'd have to consider. You'd have to be pretty happy with that. I think if you have a stretch like that, you can split those games. And I think that's entirely possible. That's one of the things that I definitely want to see. Because I know the atmosphere is going to be there, but when we were kids, Madison Square Garden home court advantage was a real thing, and I want to see us really take care of business on our home court and have like 37-4 or 35-7, something really powerful home record, and let people know that MSG is our house, and you don't come into our house and steal our cookies. We just don't let that happen. So we protect our house, and I really, because that's a mark of good teams. Great teams are great on their home floor. So I think that's really important, because I think the road doesn't bother this team. Like they're very good about preparing for road games. And the road games are tougher. There's no doubt about it. I mean, just the travel aspect of it can be tough. So, and 11-14 with just 3 home games, that is a killer stretch right there. It's crazy to me that they can't balance it better. I wonder why they do that, where you have a long stretch of mostly home games and a lot. Like, why can't they just have it like Like you play 3 at home, you play 3 on the road, or you know what I mean? More, I don't
right.
understand why they can't, where the algorithm that they use can't get more balanced than this crazy travel schedule like in the month. And it may be that there's so many events at Madison Square Garden during that time with Ranger games and concerts and stuff that they have to do it that way. But if I'm not mistaken, they can do a basketball game and a hockey game in the same day.
They
Like,
can.
I mean, I've seen them do that. In fact, it's incredible the way that they do it. Like, if you just watch them change the floors and stuff, I think that's fascinating. But again, in this day and age, I don't see any reason why you have a team playing 11 road games in 14 in a 14 game stretch. That's
Right.
insane.
And look at it though. This is what doesn't make sense. We're at Miami. You come home for Golden State, and then you go back to and then you go to the West Coast. Then you're home for Miami. Then I mean, not that Miami and San Antonio is that far, that far apart, but you're home for one game, and then you go out for another 2. like what is that? You're home for one game against Golden State, then you go out for a 5-game West Coast trip. Like, yeah, I think they could have been did better than that. Ajay, your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a tough stretch? Do you think that's tougher than the first 10 games? Or you feel like by this time the Knicks should be in a groove and this should be barbecue chicken?
No, we should be in a groove. We will be in a groove by that time.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be barbecue chicken. Definitely not. I mean, when Philly, Miami, and Cleveland are looking like your easiest games in a stretch, you know it's a tough stretch. It's definitely not going to be barbecue chicken, but listen, if we're in a groove, like somebody mentioned, I think who's went before me, Geoff. If we come out 500 in that, when you extend this to San Antonio and Charlotte, we come out with a 500 record. I think we did good. But you know what? I think we'll probably listen. I'm always hoping we do better than 500 on these stretches, because that tells you what the team is about. That tells you what kind of team you have. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it is tougher than the first 10 games. I love the first 10 games. I really like the way we start the season. But by this time too, like, little injuries, that happens to every team. I don't know. Maybe by that time, Joel and Embiid not even playing for Philly. And we can roll right over them. You know what I'm saying?
Still got Maxey and George.
Joel Embiid is he's the problem. He is the problem in Philly. So you never know. Things happen. But yeah, that I think that is so far with everything we looked at, that's the toughest stretch of the season so far.
Definitely. And the Knicks don't have, and before we get to Delusional, the Knicks would usually have a nice home game stand, but I maybe I have to look at the schedule again. I don't see the Knicks home for more than 3 or 4 games. They used to have a span where like 4 games at home, 1 on the road, another 3 at home, 2 on the road, another. Nah, I don't see that in this particular schedule.
We got the right above that. We got Sacramento, Memphis, Denver, Lakers, Houston. We got a nice 5 home game stretch there.
1, 2, 3, 4.
In January. January.
You're counting Brooklyn as a home game?
Yeah, I'm counting Brooklyn as a home game. Brooklyn makes it 6.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because above that is Minnesota, and that's actually a nice stretch. That is a nice stretch.
And before Brooklyn is Atlanta, where we're pretty comfortable playing in there too. So
yeah, 1, 2. Yeah, that actually is a good stretch. Delusional, your thoughts on that?
So I had to kind of do some research really quickly. Just looking at last year. Last year we were 23-18 on the road, 27-14 at home. And I think we have a better team than last year, a more complete team to kind of start on paper now. But like I said, get into that stretch, who knows what that situation is. And then, of course, this is actually coming off for All-Star break. Obviously, there's maybe 1 or 2 games before that. But, yeah, So I think Chicago is that first game coming off an All-Star break. Then of course we go on into that full stretch. So guys, that's that recharge set for us. After All-Star break, we coming in recharge, we coming in. So I think this is actually another stretch of where this is the push to the playoffs. This is the showcase where we at coming out of All-Star break. What do we got? Similar to that first 10 games there, this is that second half push that usually a lot of teams will know. Are we a playoff team? Are we not a playoff team? Like, what are we working with? And I think this is that stretch. This is that stretch coming off All-Star break. Man, Cleveland, that's another game of importance. Boston, we probably played Boston maybe 3 times during that time period. So this is probably this is the third to last time. So this is still, figuring out who's going to win the series. And I think that's very important. Philadelphia as well. We've played them numerous times already. So those are key games to see who's going to win that series, because these are the teams that they already put above the Knicks, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So these are very important games. We already talked about Memphis. Miami, I'm only worrying about Miami because someone might get hurt in that game. So we need to make sure that we play nothing but rookies on that game. So I don't care if we lose. Just let the rookies play, that we can still have our guys going in. But other than that, Golden State, Lakers, Clippers, Sacramento, Portland, even with Portland, it's still, all these games are really solid games. But like I said, these are the make or break game. I think, honestly, rather than that first 10, this is really the series that'll say the Knicks are something. If we can go 8-2 in this series, no, actually it's more than that. How many games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, so it's 12. So 10-2, 9-4. I mean 9-3. I'll be solidified with that. I'll be solid. That right there can sit there and say the Knicks can pan out with any Eastern team, any West Coast team to come out of it. Because when you really look at it, I doubt the Lakers will make the playoffs, but Clippers could be someone that can be there. Golden State is there. Miami's out the East, Philly and Boston. So these games will solidify where the Knicks at in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and when I said the Knicks didn't have a good home stretch, right before that, actually, there's 13 games, and 3 of them are on the road. So I think there's 10 games. Yeah, there's 10 games that they'll be at home versus 3 road games before they go on this trip.
Right.
Actually, so they'll have an opportunity to make some hay before they go out on this trip. Anybody else on this stretch in the home game stretch before it? All right. And just to end the season, the Knicks usually end the season really well. The last 20 games, or do we want to do just the last 10? Let's do the last 10. That's starting with the, let me see. Starting with the Milwaukee on March 28th. So that'll be at Milwaukee, Portland, and Philly at home, at Cleveland, at Atlanta, Phoenix at home, Boston at home, at Detroit, Cleveland at home, and then at Brooklyn. That's the last 10 games. We usually finish strong. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't continue, but you guys' thoughts on that?
I guess I'll start it off. Like you said, Queen, we always finish out strong in those stretch. I don't think why we wouldn't during this time period. A lot of these teams are probably still fighting for positioning. This is something similar to what we did last year, where we went on that stretch to kind of push ourselves to 2. So this might be the same situation, guys. Positioning for seeding. So it can go either or. You saw teams lose on purpose not to face certain teams. We're not going to talk about that.
We ain't doing that.
but we're not doing that.
I could tell you that right now.
Exactly. So that might be the case going down on these last couple of games. So we might not see Boston at full strength. You might not see Phoenix at full strength. But regardless of our schedule, we're still going to put out that starting five and play for position and what makes sense for us. And who knows if this could possibly be the number one seed. So who knows what positioning we could be fighting for, but I believe we're knock it out. I don't think that last schedule for us be tough at all because, like you said, there's different elements to it. Some team might be tanking. Detroit might still be in a tank. Cleveland might be in position because remember, Cleveland was one of the teams that was losing in the end. They were above us, and they started to lose to kind of not play against certain teams. So, and then of course we know Brooklyn is definitely trying to get that number one draft pick. So. I think it would be good.
Yeah. Geoff, then Andre?
I think Brooklyn would give up the number one draft pick if it meant beating us. We're going to get Brooklyn's best game. We're good. They may not even play their starters, but we'll get their best punch for sure. But I agree with what Delusional said that, you don't really, what looks like a really hard game on paper down the stretch. You don't know where these people are at, what positions they're in. Boston was pretty much coasting to the finish line, when we played them late in the year last year, and we beat them in Boston Garden. So it's not Boston Garden anymore, whatever they call that place, TD Waterhouse, whatever. Mm-hmm. They call it. But anyway, back to the last 10 games. I agree with Delusional again. I think that's going to be a stretch that we'll probably go 7-3 or 8-2 because the Knicks under Tom Thibodeau have always kind of hit their stride as they're prepping for the playoffs and striving to get that best seed. And the Chicago game to end last season wasn't pretty, but we got the W so we could get that 2 seed. And that's one thing I love about this team is that we are going to play for the best seed possible, and whoever that means we face in the first round, that's who it means. And hopefully, though, we're talking about seeding and not playing at that point, because if that would be a severe disappointment in my mind. I think this team needs to be between 50 and 55 wins. This year because we won 50 games last year, and I really feel like we're going to miss Isaiah Hartenstein, no doubt about it. But I don't know when we got Dante last year, Queen just had this feeling that there was more more meat on the bone than he had shown, and he proved that. And I think what we're going to see with McCall is that there's more meat on the bone than what we saw when he was having to be the first option on a Brooklyn team. And that's not his role. But when he's in the third option, that's his sweet spot. And I think we're gonna see him rise and shine like the sun. I think he's gonna have a big season for us. I think that Brunson is going to be able to get the best out of him because they have that chemistry together, and he's playing with his old college teammates in DiVincenzo and Hart as well. And this team, again, it's a marathon. This team is built to plug in guys when we have injuries. That if you're in a tough spot, Deuce McBride can start a couple games. We've seen that happen, and we know that we can get a good performance out of him. If we need Precious Achiuwa to start some games, we've seen him do that. We've seen what it looks like when he has to play 40 minutes a night for a stretch of 10 or 12 games. We've done that. So we have guys. If things don't go, because there's always the unexpected in every season, and we have the ambulance waiting for Big Mitch, outside of every arena, and OG. So, and so, but again, when we're fully healthy, your worry is, well, where are we going to get minutes for Josh Hart? Where are we going to get minutes for Dante DiVincenzo? But then you realize over the course of a season, well, when OG goes out, then you slide McCall up to his spot, and then you bring in Dante DiVincenzo to start. If if for some reason Randle isn't right to start the season, we know with confidence that we can have Josh Hart play a lot of those minutes
Right.
with OG Anunoby at the 4 spot. And so there's a lot of pieces to make this team really successful in the long haul. And so I just want to encourage us as Knick fans, let's enjoy the journey, because I think that this is going to be a really special team. And I can't wait to get to the playoffs and all that stuff. But let's enjoy the journey. Let's enjoy watching this team grow game to game. Let's enjoy getting to watch Jalen Brunson in his prime. I mean, there's so much to like about this team. There's so many
Right.
storylines. Let's enjoy the journey, because it's not just about the destination. The journey and the ride that you go on to get there is a big part of the fun.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Anybody else want to comment on the last two before we get into the injury updates? Ajay, did you have anything to say about the last 10 games of the season? And then we'll get to the chat before we get to the
yeah. I mean, I agree. I agree with Geoff and Delusional. I think by the time we get to that stretch of the last 10 games, we're gonna be coasting. We're gonna be in cruise control. We're gonna know what we're made of. We're gonna know, the chemistry is gonna be exactly where it needs to be. We're gonna be preparing for the playoffs. We're gonna be in great shape, man. Like, and Delusional said 8-10, 8-2, 7-3, somewhere around there should be those last 10 games. We're definitely gonna have a way above 500 record on those last 10 games, because we usually do. The end of season, Tom Thibodeau teams, we always play well at the end of the season. Even when we miss the playoffs, we go 8-2 the last 10 games.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be cruising. We're gonna be fine.
Yeah. Anything from the chat before we move on from the schedule?
Yeah. There's a couple of things, a little bit all over the place. Let me show this real quick in any order. Knick-knack, shout out to Knick-knack. Are we a playoff team? Yeah, and he answered it right away. Yeah, we definitely a playoff team. Just want to finish top 3, at least 2 series with the home court advantage. I fully agree with that. And and Queen, probably a later show, we're probably gonna try to position the team, see where we're gonna end up by the end of the season. We're gonna try to predict if we're going to be top 3 or top 2, are there 2 teams that we feel are better than us, or, it's just Boston. We're going to have to fight with Boston just for the top seed at this point, So, yeah, I definitely agree with Nick Yak. I don't know if you guys have any issue with that.
I don't have any issue with that at all, but I will say this. There are some people in the Knick community that just want to get to the playoffs healthy. They don't, where we finish is not that important. How many games we win is not that important. Let's just get to the playoffs healthy. And I agree with that. However, I don't agree with artificially limiting people's minutes just so you can get to the playoffs healthy. I think if the Knicks are healthy, nobody's playing over 35 minutes. I mean, when you look at how many minutes the Knicks played last year, the average was 35. So nobody, if we're healthy, nobody is going to be called upon to play more than 35 minutes. You do not need to artificially decrease your minutes less than 35. 35 minutes, you should not be getting overuse injuries at 35 minutes. And if, these other type of injuries, they can come at 32 minutes. They can come at 18 minutes. They can come at 7 minutes. I think the key for the Knicks is to stay healthy so guys aren't called upon to play 38 minutes, 40 minutes. The other good thing is our situational guys are going to be really good. I'm not sure Precious Achiuwa is going to be in the rotation. But if he's not, if somebody gets injured and you have to put a Precious Achiuwa in the rotation, that you're in a good spot. If you have Campaign out of the rotation and something happens to Brunson, and you got McBride, who I suspect will already be in the rotation, and then you could bring in Campaign, who played 20 minutes per game for Philadelphia, averaged 10 points a game. He's a veteran. He knows how to run a team. That's a good place to be in. So a lot of times when we look at depth, we look at the second unit. But when I think about depth, I'm thinking about these situational players, because if they can step in, that's going to keep the minutes down. A lot of times our players had to play 40 minutes, 42 minutes because of injuries, because who were you going to play? Charlie Brown, Dwayne Washington, Jacob Toppin. You could do that. But in a playoff series, if you cutting Josh Hart from 48 to 40 or 38 and you giving 10 minutes to Jacob Toppin, when you think about how close those games are, I don't know if the Knicks make it within one game of the Eastern Conference finals if we're giving minutes to those guys. So I think having Campaign on this unit, having Precious Achua on this unit, having, hopefully if it doesn't get to that, having Kolick, on this unit. I know a lot of people are sleeping on. He only has a training contract. Okiki, but he has NBA experience. If he makes the roster and you have to put him in, you're putting somebody in with NBA experience. So yes, the Knicks, I would like the Knicks to finish in the top 3, but that's going to happen from guys playing their regular minutes, not from artificially decreasing their minutes because we think they might get injured, because there's a trade-off for doing that.
Here's another one. Is Brunson going to have an MVP season with this team healthy? Speaking of healthy and situational minutes and all that stuff. What
the Knicks is the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference and they win 58 games. I think so. I think he's right there.
Yeah.
Only reason why I might question that is because I think we have like a complete team situation, similar with Tatum. Tatum wasn't in that ranking of MVP, but they had the best record in the league, and he still was putting over 25 points per game. So I think it might be something similar to that, which will kind of. I don't think he'll still have those stretches of 40-point game, 5 nights in a row due to the team being complete. So that might be the only hindrance.
Well, he can have an MVP season without winning the MVP award, though, too.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? His production on the floor could be worthy of the MVP and him not get the award because there's still 2 big men named Joker and Embiid, and if they do what they're capable of doing over the course of a season, it's tough to give it to anybody else just because that's how it works. Or Giannis, for that matter. If Giannis has a big season, these voters don't watch the Knicks religiously like we do. They'll watch them maybe 30 times a year because we got a lot of national TV games this year. But there's a lot of great players in that MVP conversation. So I could see him putting up MVP numbers and not winning it, but he still would have. I thought he had an MVP season a year ago, in the season that we just saw, and he finished top 5. So I don't see any reason why he's not going to do that again. I think it's going to be easier for him this year than it was last year.
And then I also think people like a good story. And I think Brunson is a good story. I think if the Knicks are 58, first place in the Eastern Conference, it's all about narrative, I'm finding. Like there was a time when Quick was here, he wasn't even in the 6th man of the year conversation. Then people started questioning, well, why is he not? He has this, that's it. The next thing you know, he's in the 6th man of the year conversation. A lot of it is, is narrative. But you do bring up a good point, Delusional. When you have a really good team and you're spreading the wealth and multiple people, because people were saying that
I think
Tatum shouldn't even be first team. I'm like, what? Yeah. He's the best player on the best team, and because his scoring is down because they have more people, he shouldn't be first team. I never got that.
And to me, I thought SGA should have won MVP, to be honest with you. Then they had the best record in the West. A team that came from nowhere, it's averaging over 30. Mm-hmm. So it's who knows.
Yeah. One more. Nick Yak talking about minutes. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat, Queen. So I gotta.
I know.
It's
I
all
see it.
over the
I
place.
see it. I see it.
I try to arrange them in an order that makes sense, but it's kind of tough. So they talking about minutes, and Nick Yak says unless we in a game and Brunson and Randle need to play the whole fourth quarter, they might not get 38 minutes.
They might or might not.
I think he means might not. Like, unless they.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna get 38. Randle averaged 35. Brunson averaged about the same 35.
Yeah, that's what he's saying though. They might get it on a night where they have to play the
where they
entire
need
fourth
to play.
quarter.
Yeah, they might get it.
But
they might get 38.
overall, most games they're not going to do that. But if we have, if we are in a tight game and we have to play in the entire fourth quarter, then you might see 38 plus minutes for those games. And those always come up during the season. That's definitely going to happen at some point. But that's why it's average minutes per game. You're going to have some where you're not going to play at all because of an injury. So that factors in too. So
yeah. All right. Are we finished with the schedule?
I think so.
All right. Let's briefly run through.
Schedule.
Ian, yes, hit that.
Hit the like button.
75 in the chat. I'm not sure how many likes we have, but if you're appreciating the content, hit the like button. That's a way to support the channel. It helps the algorithm. It helps the show get exposure to others who may not know about the show and know about the channel. So that's an easy way to support us. Hit the like button and listen. Even a thumbs down button shows engagement. Right? YouTube doesn't. Yeah, we're not
Queen wants to show some kind of pulse.
Give you some love.
You're there.
Show a pulse.
Well, if we say something bad about Deuce, we know we'll get a thumbs down.
We get a thumbs down.
Right.
Yeah, definitely hit the like button. We only have 48 likes, man. Let's get that thing up to at least 65. Let's get it up
to 22 short. Thank you, Bob.
Not just hit the like button, but share this thing on your social media.
Share it on your social media platform
bring some
as
more
well.
People, man. Let's get the family bigger.
We have some good things coming next season. Good things coming.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So this is based on the Ian Begley report from SNY. Brunson seems like he's going to be ready for training camp. He had surgery in mid-May to repair his broken left hand. And he said that during the celebration of his captaincy last week, there wasn't any visible restrictions on his left hand. But I mean, it's a press conference. I'm not sure what the visible restrictions would be, but it seems like Brunson is going to be ready for training camp. Now, Randle, he said he's still rehabbing his right shoulder after surgery. He had surgery in April. The Knicks said they would reevaluate him in September. So probably in the next few weeks, he will be reevaluated. He doesn't think he'll be ready for training camp, but that he should be back for the season opener on the 22nd. We just went over the schedule. How much does that change if Randle is not available? Just given how well the team played last season when he was out. Delusional? No, Delusional, then Ajay.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. I don't think it really changes anything. I think what it does is obviously OG's starting at the 4. Then you're going with Mikal at the 3, and then you having Dante at the 2. Now that's shooting and spacing galore for Brunson to start that season hot. Right. Something with where he ended off the season with, he'll continue, and then that thing can gradually get Julius back into par in that rotation. Our defense will be solid. Not to say Julius can't play D because we were on a stretch, but I think we'll still be solid. I think we still be good. The main key is if we have Mitch going into those games to kind of help out with the offensive rebounds and the rebounders and the block shots. But I don't think that really changes anything. I still feel confident.
Yeah. I definitely think it's something we can overcome, because I do think that OG and Mikal have more than they can do more than they're going to be asked to do this season, right? When Randle is healthy, OG is going to have a lot more in his tank offensively. Mikal Bridges is going to have a lot more in his tank offensively. And if Randle is out, they get an opportunity to fill in and do a little more. And both of them are capable. Over the long haul, though, we trying to win this chip. We need Juju. We need Juju. Ajay, your thoughts before we get to
So,
Geoff?
so one of the things that I think the front office did well by putting this roster together is we have a lot of guys who could play like 2-3 positions. There's a lot of overlap, and I don't think that's done by accident.
Yes.
Oh, what's up to my guy Sharon? What's going on, bro? It's not all done by accident, right? It's well thought out.
Yeah.
Because if Randall goes down, like you mentioned, you could slide OG to the 4, and or Josh Hart could come in and play some 4. Even Precious could give you some minutes at the 4.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of layers here. If OG goes down, Mikal Bridges slide to the 3, then you bring DiVincenzo off the bench to play the 2. So I mean, for us to be like really, really severely affected, we're going to have multiple injuries. If one guy goes down, I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
The only person you wouldn't like to see go down, of course, is the captain. You don't want to see Jalen Brunson go down. But anybody else, I think we'll be fine. So if Julius Randle missed some games, I don't think we'll miss a beat.
Yeah, that's a great point in terms of I hadn't thought about that, how the Knicks constructed this roster, the front office, so that there would be some overlap. I think they're saying, listen, if multiple guys go down like last year, we got to have some guys on this roster who can step up and give us a good chance. So that's a great point, actually. Geoff?
Well, I just want to say that yes, Juju is supremely important, obviously, but let's not forget how well Mitchell Robinson was playing before he got hurt last year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get that Mitchell Robinson and add to that OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges defensively, oh my. And the amount of things that a creative coach like Tom Thibodeau could do with lineups and defenses, switchability, and just the possibilities. I mean, if you're talking about Robinson actually being healthy and can play 30 minutes a game, oh my, there's a lot that defense is going to be able to do. I mean, we saw what Robinson was tasked to do when we didn't have lockdown perimeter defenders. And now we have 2 of them. Mm-hmm. Like, you can completely wall off and close off the paint. You can make 3-point shooters' lives miserable. That defense could really be one of the most elite units that the sport has seen in a long time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely one way to kind of deal with if Randle goes down, just period. The Knicks defense is going to be really good. The Knicks are going to have a top 10 offense and defense, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. So in terms of Mitchell Robinson, good segue. Geoff.
Well, I'm vice president of the fan club. I've got to, I've got to pump up my guy a little bit, or staff is going to come and get me.
Right. So he's rehabbing his injury. He has surgery in mid-May to repair a stress injury to his left ankle. As of earlier this week, he had not yet been cleared for high-intensity weight-bearing activities during his rehab. So he has to clear several hurdles, Ian Begley is saying, before he gets clearance to fully participate in training camp. And he very well may do that over the next, 5 weeks before training camp starts, but he might not. And I think the concern with Mitchell Robinson is when he's coming off an injury, he's available, but it takes him some time to get his footing. So just your thoughts on how that impacts the schedule. I know we have contingency plans in terms of how the roster is built for Randle not being ready at the start of the season, but also if OG goes out. I feel real comfortable if OG, defensively we'll have to do some things, but offensively, I think we're gonna, the roster is built for that. Is the roster built for Mitchell Robinson to slowly come along the first, I don't know how many games it's going to take him to get into shape?
Can I start it off, Queen? Because I gotta
Sure.
definitely step aside and finish packing. So for Mitch, I don't think we're I don't think we got the bodies to kind of replace the production and the size for Mitch. So I think that will definitely kind of change the landscape from my perspective. More so on how we play. We definitely like to ice the pick and roll and play drop coverage and stuff like that on that defensive end. With Precious playing at 5, or even I don't mind Sims at a spurt, but if we're talking starting a full that 10 game stretch where we're playing against other 7-footers and bigs that are prominent, it's going to be tough. I think that's going to be a legit challenge, especially when you went from having Mitch and then you had Hartenstein, who brought a different dynamic on the offensive end. That kind of ties into Tibbs. What are you going to do? What style we're going to play? How are we going to utilize the big? So I think that leaves question marks. So anytime we have question marks in any scenario of a team that's potentially on a championship mark, then how can you label it that? So I think with that aspect, I didn't even know about that, to be honest, about the whole Mitch report. I thought both of those guys would have been kind of ready for training camp, to be honest. But hearing that, like you said, the team, we've picked up guys that if OG went down, you got bigger wings that can play D. I believe it was somebody from, was it Orlando that they picked up another size wing that was with Orlando.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna make the team though, or Kiki.
Right, but still, like he's still an intriguing piece that just like, okay,
Yes,
he plays defense, he's athletic, he has some height on him, so that's good. But then of course when it comes down to that center spot, I believe Mitch was the only 7-footer that we got. Sims is 6'9", Precious is 6'8". Where else do we have that size or that presence? Someone that has a back to the basket game, someone that has a hook, someone that's an elite shot blocker. So those are definitely needed to anchor, especially in the Tibbs defense. So definitely changes a lot with Mitch might not being prepared and ready. And like you said, with that, Tibbs has a record of once you're cleared, he's throwing you in. There's no gauging on you going to the G League and working yourself in, or playing in practice, full time and get yourself prepared. As soon as the doctors say, yeah, he's good for contact, you out there. I want to say, wasn't it 2 seasons ago, Mitch literally got cleared right before game 1. My man played 30 minutes. 30 minutes, was tired, couldn't even defend on certain plays, but he still played 30 minutes. So if that's the case and Tibbs go with that mindset here, we're not going to have Mitch for the rest of the year, because he's probably going to re-injured or fracture or whatever the case is with those ankles. So that's a tough one. Yeah.
And the first 10 games are tough.
Yeah.
The first 10 games are tough. Ajay?
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. What?
We're talking about if Mitchell Robinson is not
ready
at the end of the season, or he's ready, but he's not in shape
100%. In shape 100%. I think we'll adjust. Like I said, the way there's a lot of overlap. Yeah, and Delusional, you're right. We don't have any other 7-footer on the team that Tibbs willing to play. I don't know, how tall is the new kid?
40?
40. Yeah.
He could be 8 feet. I don't see him.
He's not getting anything.
I
But
don't think
listen,
so. Not on a championship contending team right now.
Queen, you know it. Jeff, you know it. The chat knows it. I'm very comfortable with Precious Achua giving us minutes at the 5. He'll give us minutes at the 5. We'll play a lot of small ball where Julius Randle will play the 5. And listen, when you need a big body up there to jump way above the rim and grab some rebounds, we got Jericho Sims who could come in and get the job done. We don't need him to score. We just need to grab rebounds and guard somebody out on the perimeter on the switch. He could do those things very well. Listen, we don't have Hartenstein, right? What are we going to do? We got to play the guys that we have. And those guys, we saw it last season. Those guys, they came through. Precious Achua came through when needed to be. Josh Hart, we slide Josh Hart at the all right. You put Josh Hart at the 4, we have pieces we can move around.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, and before we get to Geoff, not to take anything away from Mitchell Robinson, we've since he's been here, we've been able to play pretty well in his absence. Would we have played better if he was here? Possibly, but Noel played significant minutes. We were the number 4th seed in the playoffs. We eked it out the last game of this or 2 of the season, and he missed a host of games last season, and we still made it to the 2nd seed. So he's important, no doubt about it. But the Knicks have been able to piece together something, and somebody has usually stepped up and elevated their game in his absence, and hopefully that'll happen this time. Geoff?
Yeah, and I think what the rough part is the nature of the injury. When you have a fracture in your foot, you literally can't, there's no way for you to, stay in cardio shape, really. There's not any, you can do pool work maybe, but there's not really any way. So it doesn't matter if you're 7 foot or 6 foot or 4 foot, you're going to have time to build that back up. And, being an athlete is one thing, but being in NBA game ready shape to play 30 plus minutes is something entirely different. We even saw Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart at the beginning of last year a little bit gassed, from having played in FIBA. So that is a concern one way or the other. But what I'll say is this: I think in the grand scheme of things, it may work out in the Knicks' favor because of what you and Ajay were talking about. Because Tom Thibodeau is going to he's going to force him to play some of those smaller lineups because there's not, and even if you're playing Precious, you're playing a small ball lineup because he's not a 7-footer. And I can't see a world where Jericho Sims is playing 30 plus minutes. I would be stunned if that was the solution that he went with. And if he does go with that, it means that Sims is playing well because he's not going to stick with that very long. In other words, if Sims is not getting the job done, he's going to put somebody else in. He wants to win every game. So, but I really think from the long-term aspect of this team that the more small ball we see early, the better off we're going to be because it's going to these guys are going to show Thibodeau that this is a style that works, especially in the modern NBA, and it's something that they can go to and rely on. And the more that he sees it work, the more comfortable that he's going to be with it. And that's his number one thing. Am I comfortable with that? Well, if we go through 20 games and we're treading water above 500, he's going to be able to say, okay, we didn't have Robinson, but when Robinson has to sit for whatever reason, I know I can go to this. And that includes in the playoffs, because I think, as you've rightly pointed out time and again, Queen, when it comes to the playoffs, you've got to be able to play different styles. You may need Mitchell Robinson when you're playing against Joel Embiid, but then when you're playing a team like Indiana, you may need, OG Anunoby at the 5, for example, to to just to better match up with what's on the floor. And
And I
so,
need Thibodeau to do that. I can't, like, you want to see me be upset this season is when he has Mitch out there on Miles Turner and these small mobile centers and refusing to go small. Go ahead, Geoff. Continue.
yeah, I think to Tom's credit, though, I think he has been very flexible. And if he show, and then that's why I said I think it may work out better because he'll have sometimes necessity is the mother of invention, right? He'll have to figure it out without Robinson in the lineup, and if he does figure it out without Robinson in the lineup, that means that Robinson becomes, I hate to say it like this, but more of a luxury, right? You can, you're going to be fine if he plays or fine if he doesn't, and I think that with the way that this roster is built and the way that the league is, it's a guards game, and we have so much pressure that we can put on a defense with our wings. I mean, if you think about an OG at the 4 lineup, or even OG at the 5 and Randle at the 4, but if you're putting it on the floor and then you have Bridges and even Chenzo against the opposing guards, I think that's going to be super effective. Or Josh Hart. Here's another really good defender, and you'll see more minutes from Josh Hart. And
Who's
so I
working
think
with a shooting coach, by the way.
yes, and hopefully that works. But I'm a fan of Josh Hart's game, though. I just think he's a winner. And I think, when push came to shove in that 76ers series, he made shots. When it mattered in that series, he made shots. And really, when you think about it, our collapse really coincided with his injury, right? Because he was able to go out there, but he wasn't able to be the same player. He wasn't going to sit because that's who he is.
Right.
But what we saw was not healthy, Josh Hart. And then you had the Brunson fracture of his hand, and that was, a wrap. But, this team has flexibility. I have faith in Precious Achiuwa to log big minutes if we need him to. I think if you're missing both Randle and Robinson to start the year with that schedule, that makes it tough. I think you might see a slow 4 and 6, 5 and 7 kind of a start if that's the case. I'd like to, in an ideal world, we have at least one of them. And actually, in my opinion, Randle more than Robinson, obviously, because Randle's the all-NBA guy, and nothing, I love Mitchell Robinson, but give me the all-NBA guy because that makes everybody's life easier and on offense. And I don't know that you need to have a top 5 defense in today's NBA to win a championship.
Yeah.
I don't know that you do. I think you have to be able to outscore. You can't be Civ-like, but I don't think the Denver Nuggets, who won 2 seasons ago, I don't think anybody was going to confuse that team with a defensive stalwart.
Right.
And when they were healthy, they crushed the Celtics, who just won and are the new. So I think that you see examples of now. Does a top 5 defense help? Sure. Like I'm not gonna turn my nose up at it. I'm not even gonna say that we can't be that. I'm just saying that I don't know that it is mandatory like it was. Like Michael Jordan's Bulls played fantastic defense. The Lakers with Shaq and Kobe were great on defense. The Spurs with Duncan and Robinson were great. These were all the Detroit Pistons, even when they won in 2004, great defensive teams. But and even the Warriors, Steph is not a great defender, but the Warriors team defense was outstanding because Clay was locked down and Draymond is probably one of the most underrated defenders of all time. So you have a history of that, but I think that the style of the league may be moving away from that.
And I think it's a sliding scale. The better your offense is, the worse your defense can be. I'm not saying Civ-like, like you're saying, but when you think about how good Denver was on offense, their defense didn't really need to be great. Like they were like an elite offensive team. But I don't know if the flip side is true in today's NBA, whereas the better your defense is, the worse your offense can be. I think there comes a point in today's NBA where there's a point of just no return, where you can have the number one defense, but if your offense is 15, 16, 17, it's just not going to work. I mean, we saw that when we played. We had other issues too, but we were the number one or two defense going into the playoffs, top four or whatever it is.
When
we just did not have enough offense in that series, and for all of our defensive prowess, it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. So give me a top 10 offense and a top 15 defense, 14, top 15. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. But give me a number one defense and a top 15 offense. You might do all right. You might do all right.
Queen, a couple of things with the couple
of chats before we get out of here.
Before we get out of here. East Blue Drew hates how the Knicks front office be handling injuries. We got to get, but that's what every team does. What do you think? Like, they always give it to you somehow via, one of their reporters or one of the people that they trust.
And our two most injury-prone guys are the ones who predate our front office.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that Julius Randle is, injury-prone, but I mean, he's suffered injuries the last 2 years, and he was here before, it all. And Mitchell Robinson is only the second New York Knick to be with the team for 7 seasons in this century, the other one being Carmelo Anthony. So, I mean, I don't know that they're signing or trading for automatically injured players. We had OG have his struggles, sure, but last year was, I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of that is just coincidence. I mean, it's just bad luck. I don't know that it wasn't anything that we did. It wasn't the type of player that we get, or or Tom Thibodeau's coaching style. It just, sometimes life happens, and life happened to us last year. And hopefully, because guess what? I say this a lot. You have to be lucky to win a championship. The Boston Celtics were very lucky last year. They didn't have to play any of the teams that had both of their guns healthy until the finals, when they got Kyrie and Luka, and that was probably the 5th best team in the Western Conference. I mean, right. They took care of business. Hats off to them, but they had a very fortunate, and I would say comparatively easy road to the finals compared to most teams in NBA history and most champions in NBA history.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
Yep. Parish Duggar, shout out to Parish Duggar. Randle not available is a killer. We need him healthy from jump, and I agree with that. But if we don't have him,
you just said
we
didn't have him, we
could live. I agree. If we don't have him, it's not a killer. We do need him healthy, but it's not a killer if we don't have him. So, what else we got? Nick Yak, Precious is here to play the 4. They didn't trust top end with Huck Porty at 5. Precious is playing 4. Precious is going to play some minutes at the 5.
Absolutely, he is.
He's going to play. I think he's here because Thibodeau and the front office, they're comfortable that he could play both the 4 and the 5, because we'll need him at both positions at various points of the season.
And don't be surprised if come January we make a deal for a 5, whether it be Jalen Duren or somebody else, but somebody who they feel like is more of a traditional 7-footer. If we're not at the point where the organization thinks we need to be, if we're underachieving just a little bit, don't be surprised if that's a move that we make.
Right, and I think that's right. That's how they got the contract the way they have it. They have him waive his no trade clause, or whatever you call it nowadays. That way they could trade him if need be. And you know what? If Mitch keep getting injured, they might just trade him if another team will take him off our hands. So we don't know what's going to happen. See how the season. Uh, let's see how the season starts. Like, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And again, Nick Yak, we all see Mitch practicing last month. He'll be ready for the. And I don't think we're saying, yeah, we hope so. Like he listen. Based on the report, he may or may not be ready, right? But we hope he's ready, because practicing, shooting the ball, shooting 3-pointers, shooting free throws is one thing, but then being cleared for a full practice, a full contact practice, getting ready for playing an NBA game is something completely different. That's a completely different set of rules there. When you have
Ben
to run,
is reporting it, so you know that it's trustworthy. It's not like this is just some,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he's a trusted source, and he knows better than most. Like,
right. And Apollo, nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that. That's exactly what we're talking about. And so shout out to Bob. Top 5 defense, top 7 offense is good. Our offense can take advantage.
Great.
You know, right? That would be
That
great.
is great.
Our offense
sign
can
me
take
up,
advantage.
Bob.
No.
Sign me up today.
Sure.
Yeah. Or vice versa. We have top 5 offense and top 7 defense. I'm good with that too.
I'm good with that too. If the Knicks are top 10, and last year we were, I believe we were top 10 offense, top 10 defense, top 10 net rating. Those are championship contending teams that usually is top 10 in those 3 areas. And I don't see that changing this year. I will say this though. This Eastern Conference is going to be a beast, in my opinion. To me, Boston, New York, Philly, Milwaukee, the top 4 teams. But then after that, Cleveland, Orlando, Miami, and I'm missing one. Who might make whoever that? Indiana.
Indiana.
And like that's a beast of an Eastern Conference. And if the Knicks don't win 55, 56 games, it's because every game is a dogfight in the Eastern. Pretty much every game is a dogfight in the Eastern Conference. And I think the Knicks, Philly, and Milwaukee, and Tony Crow disagreed with me. I think those teams are close. I don't see a big drop off between the Knicks, Milwaukee, and Philly. Particularly if all 3 teams are healthy. Yeah, it's this is going to be a really, really exciting season. You can't sleepwalk. You can't take teams lightly. If you don't beat the teams you're supposed to beat, you can wind up in the 4th seed by just 2 games. You know? Yeah, so super, super excited about the season coming up.
So Queen, Tony thinks we're better than those other 2 teams, or
Yeah.
those 2? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think it's a dead. I think it's close. I think Milwaukee got better being able to pick up Gary Trent for basically nothing, because of the CBA probably squeezed them a little, so they got him on a 1 year, and they picked up another role player, DeLon Wright, who I like from Washington because of his his size. Like, these aren't star, and then they also got Taurean Prince. So these aren't like star players, but these are players like us, role players that's going to come in and give them minutes.
I think their ability to defend on the perimeter is what's going to make or break their season.
And
because
I think that's why they went with Taurean and DeLon, right, to help.
Right. And so if those guys can step up and fill those roles, look, Lillard's still a big time scorer, and Giannis is still an MVP. So from that standpoint, if they can figure out the perimeter defense, they're going to be a tough team. And I like what the Sixers have done. I think Murray did a really good job. I think that adding adding PG-13 to that squad with a healthy Embiid and Tyrese Maxey is a handful. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And they have other players besides that too. But I'm just saying, even just that big three, when healthy, is tough to stop. But again, how confident are we that Embiid is going to be healthy a whole season?
Or Paul George.
Yeah.
Or Paul George.
Yeah. All Paul George.
They're taking a risk with those two guys. I mean, Embiid was here already, but they're taking a risk giving a max contract to Paul George with his injury history, though. I think he played over 70 games or close to 70 games.
74 last year.
74 last year. Okay.
That's more reason to think he's not going to do it this year.
I kind of agree with you, Jay. I was about to say the same thing. Is he going to have 2 years in a row like that at his age? I'm not sure.
Yeah, but they had to do it.
Yeah,
they had to do it.
They're going to lose Joel if they didn't. So absolutely, you had to do something. And that's a guy that Morey trusts. I mean, that's, and why not? I mean, Paul George, when healthy, is amazing. Like, he doesn't. Like, he's a great shot maker. He's an elite defender, and he doesn't need the ball in his hands. He's perfectly fine being the second or third option, but he can take over a game if you need him to. So, I mean, and think about the Knicks series last year. If they had him instead of a Buddy Hield out there, for example, that's a problem.
Yeah, for sure. Last bit of news, the Knicks used their last two-way contract on Jacob Toppin. So that's done. I think the Knicks are at 14 coming into the season. I think they have one roster spot, if I'm not mistaken, that they may just leave open.
Yeah.
Any last words?
Thank you, Queen, for being such a gracious hostess. It was so fun to get to do 2 shows this week. Feels like we're back in regular season form here. Ajay the Villain, my guy, always bringing it. And it was good to see Delusional. That was a great surprise.
Nice.
And shout out to the chat. We've got the best viewership and listeners out there. You guys are amazing. You have great points. I love your point of view, your perspective. I always learn something from you every show. So keep commenting, keep liking, keep subscribing, and that's it.
Yeah. Queen, always a pleasure to be here. I love talking about the Knicks. We could do this for hours.
For sure.
We do this for hours. We're over 2 hours tonight, bro.
I know. No, but
we would have been under if we didn't have to do the show twice.
We started what the chat, what they don't know is we started the show before we started the show. We usually in the background talking for a good half hour before the show. And sometimes after the show, we stay on for another half hour.
Oh, that's true.
Then when there's no show, we have show different days or we on the phone or we're chatting, we do, it's constant, always Knicks, constant Knicks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Listen, this channel has grown because of you, Ajay, because of you, Geoff, Jerrell, Staffer, Delusional, and I don't want to forget, of course, Tsunami. Who were you gonna say?
Shuttle, J Boog.
Yeah, Shuttle, J Boogie, and in the beginning, Tsunami as well, and the chat, because we can be here on the panel 7 days a week, but if there's no chat, there's no channel. So I appreciate you guys as well. Let me give a few shout outs. David L. Byer, Nick Yak, Parish Duggar, East Blue Drew, Apollo Williams, Bob. The chat was very active today.
Yeah, they had all kind of stuff going on there today.
All kinds of. Coach was in here earlier.
Yeah.
Stafford Don was listening. He came in and said LOL when Geoff was talking about Mitch and how you had to stand up for him. Kevin Bacon, I appreciate you for dropping by. JJ dropped by. I appreciate you. Kerry Cox was in the building early. Angel Torres, Building Blocks, Darlene Bryant, Johnny Davis. Appreciate everybody.
Quiet Money was there earlier.
Quiet Money. Yes, Quiet Money. If I missed anybody, my apologies. Y'all know my condition. We got a lot. We got new shows coming in the fall. I'm thinking about redoing the morning show, either in the morning or in the afternoon. So we got some good content coming up for this very special season.
It's gonna be a special one, man. It's gonna be good.
Yeah. No doubt about it. All right, family. Until next time.
Peace.
Shout out to the replay game.
Sister, you're one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't